Historically, the relationship between game developers and your own end audience has always been intermediated, right? You have console, and on mobile, you have mostly Apple and Google as the gatekeepers. If your game is making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars per year, this is not even an option. You have to do this. You have to do this because 30% of your revenue going to these platforms is insane. You get into trouble with these platforms. Like they have like monopoly power to like delist you. And so for so long, it's been this kind of open secret in the industry that most of these high-grossing mobile games are testing, experimenting, but they don't talk about it because they don't want to get into trouble. If you really think about it, it's outdated, and a lot of things should change. If you're trying to bait people out directly from in-app, Apple and Google's, Apple more specifically, they're able to kind of impose their alternative terms on you, which is not that friendly for the game developers. It's really good if you have these out-of-app channels, which allows you to talk directly to users and be able to see where they are and be able to target them directly. If you message these people a link to your web shop, Apple, Google, they don't have any claim.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the Fateless team is going to be Sham and Simon. And then our special guest this week is going to be Brent, one of the initial team members over there at Stash. So how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to see everyone. I like your CAD ride. Just moved a little bit.
Yeah, Neo, he's chilling. He's tired.
Yeah,
he's crazy all night and then he sleeps during the day. So
perfect.
Yeah, walk us through just a little bit about yourself and tell us about Stash and kind of some of the things we're going to be chatting about today.
Yeah, for sure. So I work at partnerships at Stash. We are a D2C experience provider for games. So, taking care of anything from web shops to launcher. And I've been working at early stage startups. I had my own, and I, was on this journey through Capital, which is a venture fund that incubated Stash. So it's been a really fun time to be kind of in this area of like tech, early stage startup, and being able to learn everything. And that's kind of my story. I actually got into gaming. So I've always been a gamer since I was a kid, played World of Warcraft and League of Legends since probably the age of like 11, 12, which my parents hate. They think that that's really early to get into games, but I think it's late.
It's late. It's late. I'm going to be honest here.
Yeah, exactly. But gaming has always been one of those things where I never really imagined myself to have a career in it. I did law school, and I was like, I always saw myself as a lawyer. And then you don't see that many lawyers drop out of law school to have a career in gaming with startups, right? So I guess that path has been really interesting.
Well, what did your parents think about that then? I mean, that's like obviously they're probably like happy now.
But they always kill me, but because my parents are, Asian, and it's typically the culture that you want to have a really solid career, which no one can fault them for it. But I think my parents have actually been really understanding when it comes to that. They were just like, you need to have a plan. Like if you drop out of law school, that's fine. You just need to have a plan. And the plan is to make some sort of sense, just, so that people can understand what's coming, like what's up, like what's next for you. And so it was a moment in time where I was like, this is what I really want to do. Let me just do this and I'll prove it to you guys that it's going to be worth it later. But I think everything worked out okay.
I agree, man. I mean, it's so funny because we actually just met at GDC. Like, it wasn't actually that long ago, and man, we had just such a great connection. We've kind of collaborated on a couple things. We've been chatting back and forth. But yeah, I mean, like for me, the thing that I would want to be interested, or what I'm interested in, is like, how did you go from I'm dropping out of law school? What was the plan? What was the plan, and then how did you get from there to here? Like, I think you have a really interesting story, just like the snippets that I've heard. I'd love to hear more about it,
Yeah, for sure. So when I was working for this law firm, it was a very kind of corporate style of working, right? Like you kind of clock in, you get to your desk, you type out these emails. I remember one of the tests that I was given was a partner sent me like a document that was like 218 pages, and he was like, can you just check the page numbers were correct? And I was like, there's no way. That took me like an hour and a half, and I was like, this is all I had to do. It's like turning my brain against like solve this. And so, I hated that, obviously. And also one thing that I didn't like was you would work very hard on the projects. And then when it gets into the hand of like your managing partner and it gets delivered to the client, you lose visibility or like of the impact that your work had, right? Like you kind of just went into like a hole, and then you don't
Into
know
the
what,
ether, yeah.
you don't know what the client was happy. You don't know if the client was looking at the stuff that you've done. It just kind of, you don't see the impact of your work.
I've got to say, actually, like anything we've done or had to do so far from a legal perspective, it's like pulling teeth. It's just kind of like, we know that it's super crucial. It's so crucial to what we're doing, but it's also so dull, and it's the sort of thing that comes back to bite you in 10 years if you don't get it right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's just like, I find it really frustrating. So I couldn't imagine a career in that direction. I would just find it really boring. So
yeah, and I was a paralegal, which means I do this thing called billable hours. So like we actually bill clients for every single hour that I sit in the office, even without me doing anything. And so if you wonder why legal costs are going like, like sometimes you get the contract. Like... Yeah, exactly. They bill you for every single person, intern, paralegal, whoever. We're just sitting there not doing shit. And like we have to account for these hours and bill the clients for it. It's insane. It's a crazy industry. But yeah, I just didn't like the work style of like being in a really big corporate environment that much. And I worked on a couple of my own projects and startups. And so I really wanted to make kind of a full-time jump to work on my own thing. And, when you feel like you're not going to have a career in whatever you're studying, you're working at, I think it's at some point you have to come to terms with, do I still want to burn more years, finishing law school, graduating, and taking the test as a lawyer, or is this time for me to try something new? So that's why.
And with your like your startups, did you go like, I'm gonna go solo startup, or did you go like, oh, I've got some friends and some partnerships because I mean you're in partnerships for Stash, right? You're a very social person. We connected like this. Did you find?
I had to work on it. I think I'm like the biggest introvert, but I had to work on it.
I can tell.
For all of my other projects, I think luckily enough I was able to have really supportive, talented co-founders. But we weren't doing it at venture scale, right? That's something that you kind of learn, and that's what I learned through the journey with Go Capital, Stash, and everything. But it taught you. I think it's always really good to get into startups when you're young, and ideally be able to kind of build one or work towards one yourself, just because it gets you the right training when it comes to like getting things done, interacting with people, being able to see how, which business ideas are good, which business ideas aren't, and that was a kind of experience that I got when I was essentially going through university.
It's interesting actually, because culturally it's so different in the UK in terms of the direction that you're pushed into. It's very much a go and find a good job in a well-respected business, rather than go and kind of like find your way with great people on your own. It's like it's a very different type of culture. And I came into kind of content creation about 4.5 years ago, and to kind of set off on my own, if you like, but really it was like a hobby turned profession. And then since then, obviously founding Fateless and getting involved from this side, I kind of unlocked this different world and different way of thinking. And for me, it's like, it's perfect. I love this side of business, but it's definitely not something which is kind of like, pushed into you from an early age in the UK and like I think it is in the US and perhaps Asia.
But I think people who are really good at what they do they typically have an origin story like that. I think if you're pushed into something, it's less likely that you will really fall in love with it and like really enjoy it, right? Because if you really like something, you don't like you read up on it, you're curious about it, you kind of work on it outside of work hours, and so you just naturally tend to get good. That's kind of how I think about it.
And then so you moved to Go Capital, and what type of role, I guess, were you doing there, and then were you a part of that transition to Fractal, or how did that work? How did the next steps go, I guess?
Yeah, so I think I got lucky, and I was able to meet with Justin Kahn, Robin, Ken, who are now the co-founders of Stash, but Go Capital was also a venture fund that they had, and they had a really interesting thesis, which is for some of these really cool industry trends or intersections between emerging technologies, we want to be able to incubate our own companies. We don't want to wait until a company comes along. Like there's amazing people that we know, there's amazing potential. Let's try to build one of our own teams. And my role story at Go Capital was to kind of look after the incubations and, not necessarily investing side, but like looking at the companies that we've thought about and if we deploy Brent into it, he's going to try to set up everything and really make sure that, we can get this to market, for example, or we can, get enough traction to raise our first round. So one of the first companies that we incubated was called Fractal, and that's what turned into Stash. And we were in the space where we were looking at all of the blockchain games. We're like, okay, well, these games want to get more users. Let's build a platform-based publisher for these games. And that was a really interesting journey for around a year and a half. And then we felt like the market was a little bit, premature, and the games were struggling to, they were very, very early, for example. And a lot of the things in the ecosystem weren't built just yet. Like the Rails weren't there. The users, the gamers aren't there. People are still getting kind of tripped up around simple stuff like wallet layers and things that people really don't worry about in gaming, Web2 gaming, for example. So we decided to pivot, and that was I think a really great call from the leadership team. And the biggest, one of the biggest opportunities that we saw in gaming overall was this idea that platforms are going to start to open up. You see this in the cases of Epic versus Apple and Google. These platforms are opening up. Increasingly the wind is going to blow in one direction, which is game developers are getting more kind of power back over distribution, over monetization, and we want to be one of the first players in the ecosystem. And there's incumbents obviously, but there's always things that you can do better if you look that into their product, for example. So that's what we did, and that's how we turn into Stash, and the focus is all on direct to consumer. And how do we use tools, and how do we offer the right expertise to help game developers be able to navigate that space. And I think it's a really exciting mission.
Yeah, I think it's important because our viewers, generally, they're community that play games. So they won't know the kind of like complexities in the background that game developers go through, and generally people go through in terms of, costs going through App Store and stuff like that. So could you explain, perhaps in layman's terms, like what does Stash offer versus, or for a game developer versus going through like a more traditional store?
Yeah, for sure. I think historically the relationship between game developers and your own end audience has always been intermediated, right? You have console, and on mobile you have mostly Apple and Google as the gatekeepers. Specifically for Apple Store and Google Store, and one thing that our mutual friend Archie always talked about is like, you should ask how much these stores are like doing for you, right? Like you look at the feature spots, it's always the same games. You put a game out on App Store, like, how do you make sure that they get discovered? Like the App Store literally does nothing except make sure the game is installable on an Apple device. Yeah. And so I think there's limited value prop, limited offering coming from these platforms. And so and this is interesting because it's kind of a hidden secret, because for so long, if you run a web shop or anything that, lets your players pay outside of the game, for example, you get into trouble with these platforms. Like they have like monopoly power to like delist you, right? Or they'll kick you off. And so for so long, it's been this kind of open secret in the industry that most of these high-grossing mobile games are testing, experimenting, but they don't talk about it because they don't want to get into trouble. We wrote a bunch of blogs and articles about this. But if your game is making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars per year, this is not even an option. You have to do this. You have to do this because 30% of your revenue going to these platforms is insane.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
So
and that's what probably the player base don't appreciate. 30% of any purchase straight away just goes to Apple or Google Play stores for the benefit of being able to download this game. Like that's
why they can keep
it.
making Apple Vision Pro and just like random product. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, that's partially true. I mean, it's a very important revenue stream for them, and so they're not going to give up this fight really easily, right? But one thing that, like, a very simple angle that we saw was, if these big guys, find out a way to do it, then it is possible. And with these law cases, like I was saying earlier, it's only going to become more of an opportunity for more people. And I think with most things like this in the world, how kind of Shopify came out and flattened the entire e-commerce landscape. There has to be a company that is able to kind of take what's currently being done at these big companies. Like some of these teams are big, right? Like 100, 200 person teams building alternative distribution platforms, launcher, web shops, whatever. There has to be a smarter way to be able to take that and productize it, offer it to more people. So it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things that when we connected on it, we actually heard Archie and Justin speak at GDC, and that's how we even got connected in the very first place. Obviously, sounded like we're like, well, yeah, if this is a thing that you can do, like shit, this is really cool. But so for you,
but sorry, just for a couple of reasons though, because firstly, it enables us to. So if we've got our own web store, it enables us to do a bunch of things, right? So we can actually give value back to our player base by reducing cost. We can also give reward schemes for things you purchase through us directly, and we can have people's information like email addresses if we want to do some sort of special offer through the store, or if we're launching a new game, or all of these different things. Having that direct relationship with the customer rather than this kind of like third-party relationship actually benefits us as a business. It benefits the player a lot. And yeah, I just feel like, damn, it's crazy to not get involved in that and try and build something. And also, coming from someone who's built a website with my team for Raid Shadow Legends, with all of this kind of like information of how to play the game, well, we can actually start to build some of that information into this site, which is also a web store, so that the player doesn't just come to make a purchase, actually they come to have the experience about your game. And part of that is they can purchase in-game stuff. It just feels like it's a no-brainer for us to really kind of like push in this direction.
It's funny, we came into this conversation, we're like, we want to make sure that we don't feel like this is like a promotional video for stat. It is just a really good, it's just a good thing, you know what I mean? Like we're psyched about it. So
everyone wins, like who's losing it? And if there's only one person who's losing, I'm not going to call it out, but Stash, great that got increased like user base as well, and obviously you take a revenue that everyone's clear that you're going to have to earn some money. We get reduced costs. Player base gets reduced costs. Like it's a great model,
sad, right? Yeah,
it's a great model.
I think the one thing that's really exciting, and we're hiring at Stash, so hopefully this is a mission that inspires a lot of people. Is that you look at other industries and there are these trends that these industries have to adapt to, right? And for example, airline and fashion, they've really utilized this idea of like, loyalty, where they kind of cut through these middlemen to be able to pay a one-on-one, relationship with their end audiences, and that helps them monetize better, right? Like I used to book all my flight tickets through Expedia, and then I found out about these loyalty programs and being able to get like mileage back, and now I just go to United Airlines, and they're like, well, I used to do a website to book the tickets, and I get a better experience out of it.
Yeah.
I get a cashback, I get more perks for going direct. You see this in a lot of industry, right? Like e-commerce, same thing. And I just think that for gaming, this is, one of the biggest trends that I think will have a meaningful impact based on how these regulations and things are shaping up. And there's no coincidence that you go to any conference right now, like for the past year and a half, and there's always going to be talks around B2C and web stores, and it's what everyone's been thinking about. And I think that it's interesting because it really, for me at least, it gives me this perspective into like, oh, this is what you do in games right now, but if you really think about it, it's outdated, and a lot of things should change. And having game developers being able to own their audience relationships and like that has to happen at some point.
Yeah. And so are there any concerns at this moment in time from a legal standpoint then around web stores and games actually taking it upon themselves? I know there's been some legal cases that have been won.
Big ones, right?
Yeah, but ultimately, is there still some legislation in place that says you're actually not supposed to do this?
So Archie from our team would be probably the best person to talk about this.
He didn't finish his law degree. We talked about this.
I
can't give proper advice as a lawyer, but I think one thing, which is like the current state of affairs, is if you're trying to make people out directly from in-app, Apple more specifically, still, they're able to kind of impose their alternative terms on you, which is not that friendly for the game developers. It's not that much of a meaningful difference, and you get to, you have to be still subject to their rules, and you have to, I think, submit auditing reports and stuff. So we actually don't recommend developers do that. It's really, and I think you guys do a really good job at this. It's really good if you have these out-of-app channels, which allows you to talk directly to users and be able to to see where they are and be able to target them directly. If you message these people a link to your web shop or a link to your web environment, that's kind of this player hub, your second home out of the game kind of idea.
Yeah.
Apple, Google, they don't have any claim over any revenue that you're making through that destination. Like the communication channel it has to be like sufficiently out of the app. So it has to be removed from like a CTA that's directly clickable in the app.
Right. So if it's YouTube or Discord, all the places that we're already kind of connecting with with you guys, with the community, which makes sense. And that's a big part of, what we, it's a big benefit again to both of us, right? To the players and then to us to be just like in communication from so many different angles, right? It's so nice for us to be able to talk about what we're doing and how the project is going and get engagement, get feedback, get some ideas, coming from the community. But also it's nice to be able to then eventually get you to the right place to find information that you as a player, you need, and to be able to make purchases if you want to upgrade your characters or whatever the thing is. We haven't released all the different mechanics, but that type of stuff. If you want to get in there and invest, or just connect with other people outside of it, I think it's just a no-brainer.
I've got to expand on that. Is there ever a risk of them, making the decision of, hey, this game is intentionally circumventing our systems, how they're designed, so we're just going to delist their game? Like, is there they have that power over you to just be like, you know what, we're just going to delist it because they're circumventing our systems?
First, I want to say that I think it's objectively wrong to be able to do that. It sounds like an abuse of monopoly power. It was possible in the past. Now, with all of these different regulations coming out, and it's only going to get more, I think, reasonable over time, that these companies are not going to be allowed to do that anymore. That's the reason why we have these anti-steering provisions. That's the reason why, you have judges being able to rule on these cases specifically when it comes to that. If you just tell your players about a web store and you get delisted from these stores, it's not acceptable. And that's what I was talking about earlier. This is the stuff that Archie kind of reads 24/7, where we wrote blogs about it. We're trying to advise game developers about it. It's not something that these app stores are being allowed to do anymore.
So quick shift, because I love this, but actually I want to hear a little more about your experience in gaming and kind of your personal preferences and stuff like that in gaming. So I know I guess maybe a quick fun one would be, you went to IGN. How was IGN? What happened there that got you psyched? What's new in gaming that what else is buzzing other than kind of this type of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my friend at IGN was very kind, and I was able to go, and I didn't know what was going to happen at IGN. IGN is one of these brands where every time you go, there's really cool surprises. Day one, it was I think being able to see Matt Mercer in person, it was like an absolute legend. Critical Role. Amazing. And that was insane. What I really enjoyed the most was being able to just see all of these new games that are coming to market, and a lot of them were indie, or at least that's on day one, right? Day three was the Xbox game showcase, and that's all the AAA console games. But day one, I was walking around and trying different games. There was a game called Death Spores, and it was really cool.
Death Spores? How do you spell it?
Death Spores. I don't know if I can type it here, but we'll probably make something in the show notes, whatever.
We'll link it. We'll link it down.
But I don't even know how to describe this game loop because it's very innovative. So I tried that game and a bunch of others.
What's the core gameplay like? Is it a shooter? Is it a dice? What is it? What type of game?
Like a roguelite, with you having so it's top down, 2D, and it's a roguelike, and you kind of just go through different rooms, and you have a flashlight, and it's going to run out of power, and so you can only see a little bit in front of you, and so you would walk around these rooms, and there's this alien creatures that would pop up, and then they would chase you, and you don't have any guns, so you just have to kind of run to the next room before you get
killed.
It's just
pathing, okay.
Yeah, but then you can pick up stuff in the rooms where you have a freezer, you have a bunch of stuff that you can throw that's gonna explode.
Freezer.
And so, dude, there was a room when I went into it, and there was a light switch. When I did the light switch, it lit up, and it was all of these aliens or whatever. And then I walked away from that light switch, and everything went dark again. I was like, that's crazy. And I think they actually randomized a whole bunch of components in these different rooms. I don't know if it's procedurally generated, but it's you get high score based on how many rooms you're able to pass through that, which is very fun.
Okay, that's sick. Yeah, I'll check that one out. I love that type. Like the procedurally generated stuff is always like so interesting because, you know, it seems like this was designed right, and obviously some of it was designed, but it's always so cool when you go in and then the next run you're like, okay, what's going to be different in this run, and it's something that you just could never have expected. You know what I mean? Like that's
I think
so
also
satisfying.
I was playing Diablo 4 yesterday. I think like at least in Diablo 4 when it comes to these dungeons, I can't really tell if it's like a procedurally generated dungeon anymore because it's just so like it just blends so well.
Yeah.
And you know,
are you a D4 guy? I didn't know you played D4.
Dude, I think I'm one of the only people playing D4 at this point. Like,
no, now you're talking my language. What class were you playing?
Rogue, always Rogue.
Okay.
I was Rogue in World of Warcraft as well for.
Okay.
I was a mage. I was a little gnome.
Yeah, PvP Rogue. You know,
wait, hold on. Did you go all the way back to like Classic and you were Rogue? Did you play Classic?
I played Classic. So
you were sneaking around, kind of like killing people in town. That was my favorite thing to do. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna out myself here. I would destroy people.
Yeah, disgusting human, Sean, man. Disgusting human.
Yeah, I was the Forsaken Rogue, and I was doing PvP, and I got in during Cataclysm and just played that all the way through to Pandaria, and then I quit. And then when Classic came out, I came back again. Okay, but yeah, World of Warcraft is one of these games where you play once, you're like, that's just the gold standard of like how games should be made.
Yeah.
It's such a good. It was so I played it for I think 10 years or so, and it was just such a massive part of my gaming life. But it got to the point for me where, you know, I'm going to work thinking I just want to go home and grind.
Promotions,
my potions, get myself ready for the raid, and then so I had young kids when I was kind of like properly into end game raiding, and
that still takes a lot of time.
I was like, kids, you have got to speed up. Like they're in the bath, it's like, I need you to bed by 7, or I missed the raid, and you don't get back in. It's like, oh no, I'm going to do some heroics. I don't want to do heroics. I want to be in the raid. So it's literally like, let's go. They're like we're like reading their stories. I'm like, let's go. Like,
wait, Brent, did you end up? So then you ended up playing some of the. Did you ever play the 40 mans then, or were you at the point where it was 25 only when you started?
I was PvP, man. I was. Like,
you were only PvP.
Oh, you didn't do raiding.
PvP only.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was deep in like 2v2 with like a mage friend and.
Rogue mage,
to get that gladiator set. Yeah, rogue mage is a lot of fun.
I was warrior priest, so it was like the irritating. There was a lot of back and forth in which
the
which
most
was
irritating
better.
combo is when you have like shaman warrior or something.
Like God, yeah.
If you survive the first person, you're basically good. But if you die, it's going to be like
it's over.
Yeah.
But
I think something that's interesting was when I was playing World of Warcraft, and I didn't know to appreciate it back then, but you know, what we talked about earlier, I was spending so much time on their forums, right? On their forums where your account actually links with how you look like on the forum.
Yeah.
You can, like, outside of the game, I would, like, even when I'm doing classes, I would go on my phone and be able to see, like, all of my equipments and be able to kind of min-max stats based on what's on there.
The armory.
And, like, you know, if you think about what that is, that's a D2C platform. That's what Blizzard was able to build to connect with their players outside of Steam or whatever. I mean, they have their Battle.net launcher, right? So like all of these touch points, like they were just ahead of everyone else, and they're ahead of the curve. And that's something that I think, you know, I was doing that, and it was like seemed so natural back then, but like now, you know, being able to prioritize it off into more games, I feel like it's kind of come off from circle.
Oh, for sure. That's so funny because like I do remember spending so much time kind of in that armory and like and I think in the forums. Didn't your PvP rank and like a bunch of information about you
shows up,
and
that forum was so good
nice
that
too.
You don't even go to Reddit for that, right? It's just mostly it's like all WoW players, and I remember seeing these threads, and it was amazing. You can also see your friends on that website. It shows which one of your friends were online and who's seen your profile or something like that. I think.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something that we need to consider because I've played a couple of games where you go to their equivalent of a web store, and the first impression is just kind of like, is this legit or not?
Am I going to get scammed?
Yeah, am I actually being scammed right now? And because they just don't look the same sort of quality, and because you're playing a mobile game, and then you're coming outside of the mobile app to a website, and my natural reaction now is to be like, oh, this doesn't feel quite right. So that's definitely something that we will need to consider as well, really. We're obviously going to have a launcher for PC, but we're still going to have probably at least I would think 60% of our player base will be mobile led. So, I mean, have you come across that in the industry so far with the customers that you worked with?
Yeah, no, I think
like a challenge on that sort of
all
stuff.
of this, I mean, especially for a web store where the core, I guess, conversion metric is like how many people are actually trusting this enough to spend money, right? Like the UX, the ability to let players kind of have a parallel experience with whatever you have in game is like the most important. And I actually think that you look at all of the providers. This is literally the angle that we're trying to innovate on, which is you look at a lot of the providers out in the market. I don't know if that experience has been as good as it could be, right? Like that, there's so much room to improve, and really put your players first and think about what they want to see when they come here. Some of these web shops that we've seen for really big games look super basic, and I think there's a lot of room to kind of improve that as the destination for your players.
Can
if you think about the web environment, sorry, you go.
Oh no, I was gonna let you finish. Sorry, my question was gonna be: can we at least say in game? You said you can get into some murky waters if you link directly, but can we at least put a stamp in the game hey, our web store is this, even if we don't link to it? Can we at least show players it's not a scam from the game?
Yeah, 100%. So this is actually what Rovio did, which is they asked their players to join Reds Club. Reds is like the name of that bird, like that infamous Angry Birds character.
Yep.
And so you find out about the membership club link. Like they just kind of say that it's kind of available, and then you find that out through official channels on Twitter and Discord or whatever. You join there, it's like a membership club, and then there's a web shop component towards the end. That's totally doable. You should always advertise with players, I think, to be able to join your own kind of CRM destination. It's just like I said, direct link gives attribution to
because it's no different from games that have got here's our Discord link, here's our website. All of that is inside an app, right? And it takes you outside of the app into a different app generally. So if the website has also got your web store on it, which I think is the better way to go, is almost to integrate the two things so that it's like a trusted space anyway, and within that trusted space, by the way, you can buy in-game assets. That for me is the link, so that it's like, well, we already come to you anyway, and we already trust what you do in terms of content or what you do in terms of educating us on your game. Oh, and by the way, you can also purchase here. It just feels like it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I think basically you want to own the bottom of the funnel, right? Like you can get these users from anywhere, but eventually you want to drive them to the bottom of the funnel, and it's great if you can monetize directly on the right at the bottom of the funnel. So, regardless of whether I think web store providers exist, I think that's something that game developers would move to eventually anyway.
Yeah, well, and exactly, that's a great point, because I mean, it's not just from a monetization perspective. I mean, that's also part of it, but it's also for I think what Simon was kind of highlighting is the trust factor. It's you don't really want to be sending people to sketchy websites, because if they do get scammed, it's even if it wasn't something that was on us, it's kind of on us in a sense, right? We didn't give you the right place to get to do what you want to do in the game. It was kind of on us, that you decided you had to go to, WoW Gold's XYZ dot whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Hands up if you bought WoW Gold.
Am I the only one here that didn't?
You never bought?
No, never.
You didn't
play
play WoW,
World
did
of
you?
Warcraft.
Yeah,
Never
man.
1 minute.
Oh my God.
I was
Brad,
so all in on
play World of
StarCraft and
Warcraft?
Diablo.
I don't understand it, man.
I
know.
I would wake up and train StarCraft and then go to bed, and then I would wake up and train StarCraft and go to bed, and that's all I did.
At this point, I know you well enough to know that that's not BS.
Ask my friends in real life.
Brian has something in his mind, this is what he's focused on, and that's great quality. I think it just you missed
it's
out.
Actually rare. It's rare to come across someone who's only tried one of the Blizzard games and not the other ones.
Well, no, I've played them all. It's just like Sham said, because of my personality. It's kind of like how an alcoholic wouldn't want to go into a bar. I knew for a fact, because my little brother played World of Warcraft. I knew for a fact if I played, my life would be over. Like that's all I would do, and it would destroy me. So I was like, I'm not even gonna log in. I'm just not
Good
gonna.
discipline. Good discipline.
That's very smart. That's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, well, I mean, because at this point, this isn't like a Blizzard commercial or anything, but at this point, like I've so many times, my wife, we raided together, we played forever, right? She's like, you want to try it? You want to get some WoW in? And I was like, this is dangerous. This is danger zone. Okay, I can play games, but there's a reason that we've moved to the mobile space, so I can I can get in, I can play. And then I can have my time, and I can spend time with you. My kids,
Yeah.
Because right now,
sir, I think World of Warcraft kind of fell off. I think it was Classic revived it for a bit, but in general, it's not the same game that people were playing
it's so different
back in the times. I really missed. Apparently, when Vanilla came out, when Burning Crusade came out, it was like the peak in like WoW history.
Incredible.
I just wasn't around. I wasn't playing that game back then, so I
really?
Yeah,
it was awesome, actually. And actually, so a big part of our, I guess, inspiration for some of the things we're building in our game is kind of like just tells to that nostalgia. So we're not trying to become a World of Warcraft, and we don't have the capacity to even do that. But there's just some like tells to the nostalgia of people that used to love playing games like World of Warcraft, but now moved to this kind of mobile space. And it's like, what can we incorporate that we used to just find fun elements of that game? What can we actually bring? Because we think, basically our community, our audience is people that were playing World of Warcraft 20 years ago, or not 20, like 10, 15 years ago. And now they've kind of like moved through their life, and, they've had families, and they've gone to like a more 9-to-5 type of job. And they're trying to get that kind of like little just like little bit of World of Warcraft in their lives. But they have to do it whilst they're in their kind of like lunch break, or they're on the toilet and they're like, quick, get a little. So yeah,
quick run in. Well, so a lot of these questions I feel like have been softballs, Brent. So now I'm gonna ask you some very serious, hard hitting questions.
Okay.
All right. Number one favorite game. We're just gonna start with that one. We're gonna start, and then we're gonna get deeper.
You'd be surprised. I would not hesitate to tell you that's Hades.
Hades. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one to have. Okay, nice. Have you tried Hades?
You can imagine how stoked I am for Hades to come out.
I was gonna say,
it's gonna be a good one. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
It looks amazing. Okay, so Hades number one favorite game. So then, does that mean that your favorite genre is kind of that roguelike? Okay.
Roguelike, yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Now, so an actual question for us. If you were gonna pick like a mechanic or something that you think needs to fit into a game like the one that we're building, right? This turn-based hero collector. What's like one? It could be anything. Could be a boss. Could be a mechanic. Could be a monetization. Anything. It can't be stashed. Since we already talked about that. What would that one thing be?
Though, right? What do you mean? Like a game mechanic?
Yeah. Well, like literally could be
a feature or
feature like a thing that you're like, man, these mobile games, they have to have this in it.
Quality of life, anything.
Because you're coming from a different perspective, I think, than the average, person that we've kind of had on the podcast. So it'd be interesting to hear, like, what do you think is interesting, especially from a roguelike?
So, I don't know if this is going to be an answer that makes sense, but one thing that I've always thought about is, have you guys played Gloomhaven, the board game?
Yeah.
It's like the best.
Oh, you haven't played Gloomhaven? Okay, well.
They basically turned World of Warcraft into a game that you can randomize and kind of do movements with cards on the table. And so you're able to kind of create characters and go through dungeons. I mean, it's kind of a roguelike in that sense as well.
He loves his roguelikes.
I've always wondered.
Say the name again, sorry. Because this sounds just like perfect game.
Yeah, it's called Gloomhaven. So it was originally on Kickstarter, and it was so popular. It was like it shot up to like the top of the chart on BoardGameGeek.com. And now they've released a sequel to that called Frosthaven, which I've heard mixed reviews about, but it's the same concept.
Gloomhaven is a masterpiece. They hit something special.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out.
I've always thought about the fact that I think that there's imagine if you're able to transfer some of these elements from Gloomhaven onto a mobile game. I don't know what that looks like, but the one thing that everyone hates when they're doing Gloomhaven is the amount of just setup you need to do.
Management.
Right? Map tiles, cards, being able to kind of track stuff with like D&D type of character sheets and everything. And I've always just wondered about like it does have to go all the way through to become like a digital experience. You know, they've done a game for Gloomhaven on Steam, but it would be cool to have like a blended experience similar to what's it called, like Mansion of Madness, that you know the other where you play the dialogue, you know, and then you have like the map and you kind of go through stuff on your iPad or on your phone. That's the kind of element that I think I would love to see in mobile games.
roguelike. All right, I'm going to push it one further. So if you were doing some type of roguelike, what's a crucial piece what do you
add co-op to the roguelike? Like that, I would die to see a game like Hades that has really, really cool, snappy co-op components. I don't know how you do that though, because like the screen and everything, like might not make sense for it to be on the same screen. But I think that's what's going to be really different. You know, Diablo is from a different, like Diablo is more of a, I think it's an MMORPG that has like slash and dash mechanics. It's not, I don't think it's
action RPG.
Yeah, action RPG, exactly. But I think a game like Hades, if it's co-op, it would be like insane. People were disappointed that Hades 2 don't have co-ops in it. You know,
you're speaking our language here.
I agree with you 100%. By the way, yeah, that's great input.
We didn't set this up, guys. Don't worry. These questions were not.
You guys are gonna have co-op in a roguelike? That's insane.
Well, we can't confirm that, but I agree with your opinions of that would really revolutionize it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Especially if there's like class synergies, right? If one of the people in your team is a healer or whatever, the other
like
person
rogue mage,
rogue mage. Yeah, exactly. One of the, I don't know if you guys played this game. Sorry to drop so many names, but there's this game called Deep Rock Galactic. Have you guys played that?
Oh yeah, dude, that game is so good.
Yeah.
Imagine if you turned that into a roguelike, like
oh man, that'd be so sick.
Asymmetric. Dude, that's what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of class synergies in that game, you know?
Yeah, dude, it's funny. Like so obviously we're restricted in the structure of the framework of our game, but it's funny that you specifically called out co-op and kind of like community and like being with other players, because that's such a crucial thing. And I'm always just trying to get a gauge for like, is it just a crucial thing for the way we think, or is it really like something that people like love and want to do more of? But sounds like you're one of those. Okay, now easier question, but maybe I don't know, maybe it's harder. I'm grilling you. It feels like, if you were going to put a single champion in the game, single hero in the game. Okay, so again, gods, myths, legends, across mythologies, and feel free to go wild with it. Whatever. We want to hear what you would do. Who's the one? Who's the one you'd put in? Or
this is tough. I mean,
there it is. Okay, the hardest one.
from any mythology.
It can even be a real person. You know, it can be a famous shogun. You know, from feudal Japan. Like, it can be anything.
I gotta think about this. I think to me, I think a sci-fi character would be really cool, and I think it's ideally something that's not from an existing like recent IP, like a
So you'd go the collab sections, collab style, like outside of mythology. You're thinking sci-fi collab. Is that where you're kind of going?
No, I don't think like so. I don't think if you put like HAL from what's it called, Space Odyssey in a game, right, it's going to be cool. I think you want to kind of reinvent your own thing, and like that's what Hades did so well, which is they borrowed these IPs from popular mythology, right? Everyone knows about it, but it's not cheesy because it's not something that you see in like these Hollywood movies, for example. That's not like if you put Terminator in a game, it feels cheesy. You know what I mean?
Okay. So actually think about the Hades framework then, right? They've got Athena, they've got Zeus, they've got all the Greek gods, right? Is there anyone that you could think of, and it could be in that group if you wanted it to be, but that you're like, okay, you have to have, Zeus. I'll give you one that we've already talked about, right? We have to have Zeus. Is there anyone that you could think of that you're like,
yeah, what's that guy's name who never talks? Like the guy who was like who sells your stuff, but like he never talks. I love to play that game.
Charon?
Yeah, I love to play that guy.
Okay, nice. So you would go with like because he's the guy that takes you across the river Styx, right? That's his thing.
There's also a secret hidden chapter somewhere where he battles you. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think
I was never able to get there. I just read it on the guides. But
I think you can just bother him, can't you? Can't you just like attack him and he's like Well,
No,
that's
you
it.
can't. You can only talk to him, and he doesn't say anything. You just go, and then,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Sweet. So Karen, that's I never know how to pronounce that name. What is it? Is it
I don't
Karen?
really know the guy's name,
Karen?
but
I don't think
that's
it's
the
Karen.
favorite guy that's my favorite guy in the entire game.
Nice, man. Okay. All right. Well, we'll put it on the short list. And then I guess last question for me that I definitely want to ask, and then I'll kick it over to these guys because I've been talking too much. What's next, man? What's next for you? What are you up to? What's exciting?
Yeah, so I'm on this journey with Stash. We have an amazing team. Again, we're hiring, so if you're passionate about this mission, let us know at careers.at stash.vg. But my goal really is to make sure that we work with the best games in the world. We're able to help them on this mission of go DOC and make this company successful. And along that journey, being able to meet really cool guys like yourselves, building games, ideally better than Hades. So that's personally fulfilling for me. So yeah, that's my journey.
Dude, man, it's been honestly an absolute pleasure to hang and chat with you, man. It's again, we only just met, but I feel like we're longtime friends and we're catching up after like not having seen each other for a while. You know what I mean? So yeah, really appreciate you.
I will say as well, like, so everyone we've met from Stash, it isn't a Stash commercial, but actually super chilled, really knowledgeable about the industry, but in different aspects of the industry. So it's been that sort of journey from GDC where we just happened to bump into Justin Khan, and he's like, "Oh, we're having a conversation. We're doing a talk down below." And before we knew it, it was just kind of like, this is a great group of people, and
yeah,
I think that's the way our business has grown. Is kind of like this. Let's make sure that when we find someone who's genuinely a great person and skilled in what they do, let's see if we can try and bring them into the group and find a way for them to have a role. That's pretty much the way we've grown. So it's great to meet another company or another business where we've got this kind of like, I guess, synergy together, but we're on different paths. But yeah, that have got that same sort of structure. So
100%, 100%. Amen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, Brent. It's been an absolute blast, like the guys have mentioned here. But that will do it for this week's Fateless podcast episode. We'll have all the links you need down below to check out the Discord and participate in the discussion and all that good stuff. So we will see you soon in the next episode.